Okay, hola a todos. Hey, this is lesson 5.4, and this is one of the ones I'm most excited about because it's going to teach you some things that are really going to help you to sound much more proficient in Spanish. We're going to talk about direct object nouns and pronouns. We've learned subject pronouns so far. That's yo, tú, usted, él, ella, nosotros, vosotros, ustedes, ellos, ellas. We've learned possessive pronouns, me, the, or me, tú, su, nuestro, vuestro, and su. And now we're going to talk about direct object pronouns, and it's going to be amazing, so helpful. So let's just review a couple things. A direct object is a noun that receives the action of the verb directly. In English, usually follows. We say, I hit the ball. I am the subject. Hit is the verb, and the ball is a direct object. It's the thing that's literally receiving the action of the verb. It's the thing being hit. So those are direct objects in English, and they work the exact same way in Spanish. We have these examples. Juan Carlos y Jimena, that's the subject, ellos, están tomando, they are taking, what? Fotos. Están tomando fotos. So fotos, pictures, is a direct object. It's a thing being taken, the thing receiving the action from the verb. So it answers that question, what are they taking? When a direct object noun is a person, a group of people, or a pet, it's preceded by what we call the personal a. And it looks like personal a, but because it's Spanish, we call it the personal a. It doesn't, nothing like that even exists in English. We don't say anything like that in English, but in Spanish, when that direct object is a person, a group of people, or a pet, and I'll explain that here in a couple of minutes, then we use a preposition a that goes right before that, and that designates that subject, that noun, excuse me, is receiving the action. So, for example, these two sentences. La señora Díaz visita a la doctora Salas. Okay, she's visiting Dr. Salas. We don't say anything special in English, but in Spanish, we put that a in front of la doctora Salas. It just designates that she is receiving the visit. Versus la señora Díaz visita el café Delicias. And this one, she's visiting a cafe. The cafe is not a person, so it doesn't receive that personal a in front of it. So the only two differences in English in those two sentences would be that one is a person, one is a place, but in Spanish, we designate that person with the personal a that goes in front of it. Direct object pronouns then are now, or pronouns.
Like different pronoun forms.
So direct object pronouns then are pronouns that replace the direct objects. Just like we don't have to always say Rick. I am Rick. Rick likes to eat. Rick likes to sing. Rick is a Spanish teacher. We replace our name with I, with a pronoun I, so we don't repeat that noun all over and over again. Same thing in Spanish. We don't say, I buy books for my class. I read the books for my class. I take the books to my class I put the books to my class in my backpack. We say them, right? Today I bought books for my class. I'm reading them, I'm taking them to school, I'm putting them in my backpack. So we've replaced that direct object, the books for my class, with the pronoun them, and then we use that over and over again. So same thing in Spanish. We're replacing the nouns that are the direct objects with these direct object pronouns. So you can see in this example, Maribel hace las maletas. She's preparing her suitcases. Maribel las hace. Felipe compra el sombrero. Felipe lo compra. Vicky tiene la llave. Vicky la tiene. Now you'll notice that for these third person pronouns, they look pretty similar to those, I can't think of the word now, articles, excuse me. Like we have las maletas, in that case, las is the article, the definite article for the, and we replace the direct object pronoun also is las. And el sombrero, el is that direct, that definite article. So sorry, it's like 11 o'clock at night and I'm a little bit punchy. But then the object pronoun becomes lo. And in the feminine, it's la for the article, and the object pronoun is also la. So you all know me so well. There are two different ways of looking at it. We have the singular ones, me, te, lo, and la. The plural ones, nos, os, which you don't have to worry about, los, and las. And then here we go. Me, te, lo, and la, nos, os, los, and las. So what you the key here then is that when you look at a sentence, you have to first identify what the direct object is, and then choose the appropriate pronoun to replace that object. Okay, so let's look at a couple places here, or a couple things of where they go, and then we'll talk more about how to place them in the sentence. Direct object pronouns, there are two options. They go immediately before a conjugated verb or attached to the end of an infinitive. Just exactly what it says there. So, Adela practica el tenis. Practica is a conjugated verb. That's a third person singular conjugation of practicar. So, el tenis is a direct object. That's the thing that she's practicing. El tenis is a singular third person noun. So we're going to replace that with lo because it's masculine. So since practica is a conjugated verb, we place our direct object pronoun immediately before it. Adela lo practica. Gabriela no tiene las llaves. Las llaves is feminine and it's plural. Gabriela no las tiene. Okay, so we put it again, tiene is a conjugated verb. We put it directly before the conjugated verb. Carmen compra los pasajes. Los pasajes, it's plural and masculine. So the equivalent would be los. Carmen los compra before the conjugated verb. Diego no hace las maletas, plural and feminine. Diego no las hace. ¿Tienes los libros para la clase? Again, tienes is a conjugated verb. No, no los tengo. Notice that it will always come immediately before that verb. You would never say no los no tengo. That you would never ever do that. It always has to be immediately preceding that conjugated verb. ¿Cuándo comes tu enchilada? La como mañana. Comer, right? Comes is a conjugated verb. Como is a conjugated verb, so that enchilada is feminine and singular. So la como mañana. So the pronouns are placed immediately before a conjugated verb or attached to the end of an infinitive, and we'll look at that. So in this case, we have some sentences now that have some infinitives with it. We've learned several verbs that require that, right? Ir a, like ir a comer, o tener que, yo tengo que comer. Tengo deseos de comer, right? Those are all different forms of verb usage where that second verb is kept in the infinitive. So in that case, like in this first example, ellos van a escribir unas postales. Postales means postcards. So we have two verbs in that sentence. We have one conjugated verb and we have one infinitive. So you have two choices: immediately before the conjugated verb or attached to the end of the infinitive. Notice that it can never go between the two verbs, ever, not ever. So those are your two options, before the conjugated or after the infinitive. So there would be two options here. Ellos las van a escribir, before the conjugated verb las, or ellos van a escribirlas. Now notice again, as we said, attached to the end of the infinitive, and that's what it means. It literally becomes part of the word, and so there's no space between there's no gap. It literally is one whole word, escribirlas. Lidia quiere ver una película. We have two verbs, a conjugated quiere and an infinitive ver. Lidia and una película is singular and feminine, so it's going to be replaced by la. Lidia la quiere ver, or Lidia quiere verla. So again, two options, either before the conjugated verb or attached to the end of the infinitive. Okay, now what about when we just finished learning the present progressive tense? That's the form of estar with ando or yendo, right? Estoy comiendo, estás hablando. In those cases, we have the same thing. We have two different verbs. It can go before the conjugated verb, which is the form of estar, or at the end of the present participle. And again, it gets attached to it. So it actually becomes part of that word. Now, there's a little extra connotation here, and that is that if you think of the rules for how you put an accent, where you put an accent on a word, if you go back to, we're talking week 1, guys. We're talking hace mucho tiempo. If a word ends in N or S or a vowel, then the stress comes on the second to the last syllable. So if you look at here, we have Gerardo está leyendo la lección. Gerardo la está leyendo, so before the conjugated verb, or Gerardo está leyéndola. So look at that word, leyéndola. Notice that we had to put an accent mark on the E, because if we don't, it would be pronounced leyéndola, because that word ends in an A, ends in a vowel, so it should have the stress on the second to the last syllable. That's what the word is. But since it's leyendo is how we pronounce it, then we add the la, it's going to maintain that same pronunciation. So to show that it's not leyendola, it's still pronounced leyéndola, we have to write in an accent mark on that third from the end syllable. Okay, I know it sounds complicated, but just think through that. Think of what the rule would be. Look at the word without the accent mark, and you'll understand why you have to place it there. The next sentence, Tony está mirando el partido. El partido is singular and it's masculine, so we're going to replace that with lo. We have 2 options before the conjugated verb. Tony lo está mirando, or added on to the present participle. Tony está mirándolo. Same thing, we have to write in that accent mark on the A, otherwise it would be pronounced mirandolo, which it's not. It's pronounced the same, mirando. And so it's mirando with an extra syllable, so we have to pronounce it the same way and therefore force that pronunciation by adding a written accent mark. Really, if you think through that, it should make some pretty good sense. All right, we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to look at just a summary first and then do some exercises. So direct object nouns and pronouns receive the action of the verb. Yo mando la carta. You mail what? The letter. So la carta is a direct object. When the direct object is a person, group of people, or a pet, but not just any old animal, you must place an a before it. And I'll tell you what that means. I referred to this a couple of seconds ago. Many of you have pets that you treat like babies or siblings, right? We love our pets sometimes more than we love the members of our family. And so this is called personification of your animal. It's different if you see, oh, I saw an elk. That's great. That's a majestic thing. But when you see your little cocoa buttercups, right? That's your poochie. There's a whole different level there of affection. And so we are humanizing our pets and giving them the respect of using the personal a before the pets we're talking about. So not just wild animals and not just any old animal, but those with whom you have a special affinity. That almost sounds silly to say, but that's what the personal a is. If we use it in front of a beloved or cherished pet, then we're treating it like a human. Okay, the personal a has no meaning in English. When a plus el are next to each other, they become that contraction al. Remember that, you've learned that before. And this personal a is that same a, so the same rule applies. Okay, visito el museo el sábado. I visit the museum on Saturday. Okay, what is the direct object in this sentence? It's el museo. Juan visita al amigo en el hospital. The direct object here is amigo. Amigo is a friend. A friend is a person. So we have to put a in front of it, right? You could say Juan visita a su amigo en el hospital. But if you're going to say Juan visita a el amigo en el hospital, then that a plus el together become al. Visito a mi abuelo el domingo. Visitas a los pacientes en tus casas. That a should be green. Sorry about that. It should have been consistent. So that's how we use a personal a. Remember again, when it's a singular verb, it goes in front of that conjugated verb. Yo leo el libro, yo lo leo. Nosotros escuchamos a ella, nosotros la escuchamos. It'll never go between 2 verbs. And it's when it's followed the end of a present participle or an infinitive, right? You add it on to the end. When it's added to the end of that participle, you have to add an accent mark to the vowel before the ndio ending. And that's just to maintain consistency with pronunciation. Okay, let's do some exercises here. Pongan en sus papeles números 1 hasta 10. You're going to look at these sentences, write down these sentences the way they are. I want you to underline the direct object. You're going to conjugate the verb that's in parenthesis, underline the direct object in the sentence as it is, and then next to it, just write how you would replace that direct object with a pronoun. So here's an example. Yo limpiar la cocina. So yo limpio. La cocina is the direct object, so I've underlined it. And then we would replace that with the direct object pronoun la, because it's singular and feminine. Okay, so go through and do the next 9 real quick. Just write out the sentences, conjugate the verb, underline the direct object, and then write what your pronoun would be next to it. Okay, and then unpause. Okay, aquí vamos. Número 2. Nosotros lavar las tazas. Nosotros lavamos las tazas, and we replace that with las. It's plural and feminine. Número 3. Ellos secar means to dry los platos. Ellos secan los platos is the direct object. It's plural and masculine. We'd replace that with los. Número 4. Tú hacer los juguetes. Juguetes means toys. You make the toys. Tú haces los juguetes is the direct object, and it would be replaced by los. Número 5. Yesenia lava la ropa. La ropa is the direct object. Replace that with la. Número 6. Pedro y yo, that's a nosotros, right? So nosotros vamos. Pedro y yo vamos a pasar la aspiradora. That's a vacuum cleaner. And we replace la aspiradora with la. And if you think about it, just thinking ahead, you have 2 verbs there, right? So you can think of what your 2 options would be when you do come back and replace that with that direct object pronoun. Número 7, Pedro querer escuchar a mí. Okay, a mí is a tip right there. Pedro quiere escuchar. So quiere we've conjugated. The second verb does not get conjugated. And we have me. And again, when you actually replace that, you would have two options, right? Pedro me quiere escuchar, o Pedro quiere escucharme. Número 8, Elena está ayudando a ti. A ti would be the direct object. We are going to replace that with te. Elena te está ayudando, or Elena está ayudándote. Número 9, nosotros, estar, escuchando. 2 verbs again, just conjugate the first one. Nosotros estamos escuchando a Paco. Now, a Paco is a singular male, singular masculine. We'll replace that with lo. That's the first one we've seen in this exercise. So nosotros lo estamos escuchando, or nosotros estamos escuchándolo. Número 7, Javier, mirar a nosotros. Mirar is a verb. Javier is third person singular. Javier mira a nosotros is the direct object, and we've replaced that with nos. Javier nos mira. And again, the whole reason we do this is to avoid having to repeat these same nouns over and over and over again. We do it in English. Imagine if there was no form of him or her, and you had to always talk about every single person by repeating their name. Oh, I'm going out with my friend Elena. Elena is my friend. I'm going to see Elena tonight. I'm going to take Elena to it would just be exhausting. It would be so repetitive. So we replace that with her, and we do the same thing in Spanish. Okay, here's the last exercise. You're going to number your papers from 1 to 10, and this time you're going to go all the way through. We've already taken those same sentences. We've identified what the direct object is. We've identified what we're going to replace it with, and now you're going to replace it in the sentence. You're going to write out the sentence again. Some sentences will need to be done twice, and you can see I've left you big gaps for those that need to be done twice. So number your papers 1 through 10, and go through. If there are 2 verbs, place the direct object pronoun in both its appropriate places, and then come back and we'll look at them. Okay, muy bien. Número 1, yo limpio la cocina. Yo la limpio. Número 2, nosotros lavamos las tazas. Nosotros las lavamos. Número 3, ellos secan los platos. Ellos los secan. Número 4, tú haces los juguetes. Tú los haces. Número 5, Yesenia lava la ropa. Yesenia la lava. Número 6, Pedro y yo vamos a pasar la aspiradora. I already told you that's a fancy word for vacuum cleaner. So we have 2 choices here, ¿verdad? Pedro y yo vamos a pasarla. Pedro y yo la vamos a pasar. So either in front of the conjugated vamos or after and attached to the infinitive pasar. Número 7, Pedro quiere escuchar a mí. Dos opciones, Pedro me quiere escuchar o Pedro quiere escucharme, attached to that infinitive. Número 8, Elena te está ayudando a ti. Dos opciones, Elena te está ayudando o Elena está ayudándote. Número 9, nosotros estamos escuchando a Paco. Nosotros lo estamos escuchando o nosotros estamos escuchándolo. Número 10, Javier mira a nosotros. One option only, una opción. Javier nos mira. With direct object pronouns. Okay. Last exercise. Going to listen to these sentences and they'll give you some guidance. Notice that they will only give you one option, but when there are two verbs, I want you to think of both options. So just give a listen to and then write out what you hear.
2. Cambiar. Restate each sentence you hear using a direct object pronoun. Repeat the correct answer after the speaker. Modelo. Isabel está mirando la televisión.
Isabel está mirándola.
So that one you would also say, Isabel la
Uno.
está mirando.
Javier está mostrando las fotos.
Javier está mostrándolas.
Or las está mostrando.
2. Gloria está comprando el periódico.
Gloria está comprándolo.
Or lo está comprando.
3. Yo estoy abriendo las maletas.
Yo estoy abriéndolas.
O yo las estoy abriendo.
4. Los chicos están escuchando al profesor.
Los chicos están escuchándolo.
Or lo están escuchando. I'm not sure why the verb is wrong there, sorry.
5. Nosotras estamos buscando a Marta.
Nosotras estamos buscándola.
Or la estamos buscando.
6. El conductor está esperando a los pasajeros.
El conductor está esperándolos.
Or los está esperando. Okay, so again, there really is no rhyme or reason to which one you have to use. I don't know that one placement is more common than the other. So figure out the way you like it, but be able to recognize both and be able to do it both ways. Here's what we're going to do. Because I was a little bit tired and punchy tonight, if you have made it to the end of this video, if you will send me an email right now that says I made it to the end, then I will give you some extra credit points for making it to the end. So just shoot me an email that says I made it to the end and we'll give you some extra credit. So, okay. Gracias, guys. Hope this was helpful. If it was too confusing, please get back with me. The last couple of Zoom classes, we certainly could have fit another couple of people in there. So always on Tuesdays at 3 o'clock your time in Idaho time, at least Mountain Standard Time. I'm on Zoom waiting for anybody to show up and just get some help. So let me know what I can do to help you guys. Hasta. Gracias.